Good morning and welcome to the Mytech U discussion for June, and where we're going to be going through a Windows 8 preview. Thanks everyone for joining us. Jeff Funk, which is one of Mytech's managed services engineers and a new technology kind of guru. He likes playing with toys and having new tools to learn. So Jeff is going to be taking us through learning about Windows 8. And it's coming out, the different hardware that it's on, the new features, the new look and feel. You're kind of seeing that on the screen at the moment, and Jeff will take us through that. But I do want to do a couple house cleaning components. The audience is going to be on mute, so please use the chat feature. So if at any point during the presentation or the discussion that Jeff and I will be having, if you have questions, please interject. We'd be happy to answer those either during the session if we have time, or afterwards if for some reason we're not able to have time to answer throughout the session. So with that said, I would like to introduce Jeff Funk, and this is an encore presentation from our Tech Pulse event that we had back in April. Jeff actually presented this live with equipment, and we had a lab there at Tech Pulse, and there was a lot of feedback from that, the positive feedback, as well as the fact that Windows 8 is imminently coming out. Microsoft, CRN Magazine just actually released an article that the new Surface tablets from Microsoft is coming out that's going to be on the Windows 8 platform. So there's a lot of hype and buzz around Windows 8 right now, so we wanted to not only have non-core performance as well as just because it's more pertinent since it's coming out here shortly. So with all that said, Jeff, thank you very much for participating today, and please take it away.
Thank you, Nate. Hello to everybody out there. We're going to go through Windows 8 today a little bit and talk about several things that we hope can get you prepared, give you an idea of what you're going to see when Windows 8 does come out, and maybe hopefully some ideas of what you can do to plan and prepare. What we have up on the screen right now is the first thing that anybody would ever see when they log into Windows 8. It is the start screen, the Metro interface that is the default for Windows 8. One thing that we should know as we start to look at Windows 8 is there's one word that could really describe what Microsoft is doing, and it's a word that everybody fears and that requires preparation and training, and that word is change. The big thing with Windows 8 is a jump, a change, a shift in the way that we work with our computers or interact with our computers. And what you're seeing now is that main aspect of change. It's that start screen. The one thing that people hear is that there is no start button. The start button is gone. Well, it is, but it's somewhat replaced by this start screen. What I'm going to do today is, starting from the start screen, walk around through several aspects of it. What's difficult is you won't be able to see maybe how I'm using my finger on the touch screen or a keyboard to make some of the shifts between locations. So as I do shift through different things, I'll describe, well, right now I'm using touch screen, or right now I'm using mouse and keyboard. The reason why I'm focusing on the touch screen is, as Nate said, there's a lot of new hardware coming out that does integrate touch screen. So you may have staff on that are getting a new computer that actually is touch screen. However, we all know that a majority of what we do on a day-to-day basis is going to be with a keyboard and mouse. And you'll find as we walk through here that it's both keyboard and mouse friendly as well as touchscreen friendly. So without going any further there, let's just start right in with Windows 8. What you see, as I said, is the start screen, which replaces that start button. It is littered with tiles. I don't want to say littered, but full of tiles that basically represent either applications that would run on the desktop or applications that run in their new interface called Metro. Most of what you see here is the Metro interface. I'm going to use my finger here, and I'm going to slide over and show you what it may look like for applications that are desktop run. So you can see as I slide through here different Metro applications that are running USA Today, some stuff about the NASDAQ and the Dow and photos. And as I slide over, you'll see links to ConnectWise PSA or LabTech or Microsoft Office. Even though there is no start button, you can still set up links on this start screen that will access all the programs that you would run on a desktop interface. Because believe it or not, the system can run in both these Metro interface apps, which don't use the desktop, but they can also use, I'm going to touch the desktop here, a standard desktop configuration that everybody sees every day. If you're using Windows 7 right now, you'll see that there's some great familiarity between what you see here and what you see in your Windows 7, with a conspicuous lacking button, and that is down on the corner. There is no Start button. All you see right on the edge is that Internet Explorer. What you'll notice is that there is still a menu bar along the bottom that has applications. Just like you can do right now, you can pin those items to a bar down there so they're always available. So the difference between,
Jeff,
yeah,
this is great. I just wanted to clarify, just for folks that might be, just to make sure everyone's following you. So you switched from the Metro interface on Windows 8, which is now what we're seeing, and then you switched it back to more of a classic Start button interface, except it doesn't have the Start button. So this is still Windows 8, but it's in the older kind of what we're more traditionally used to mode. That
is very correct. And
okay.
And you kind of outline out a little bit of a point, is that almost of that, you say traditional interface, and in fact it is that traditional interface where the apps that we're running right now on our Windows 7 machines will run in this, what we would call a traditional interface. And the difference between this and this Metro interface is that they have applications that will run in this interface. For example, as you brought this up, let's take a look. Here's an application. You'll see that it is a full screen application. There's nothing that's cluttering the desktop screen. It's just that application, which is what Microsoft is trying to go for here. They're trying to go for the ability to use as much screen real estate as possible. Now, this application is one application running in the Metro interface. If I can go back to here and click on my desktop, I'm still running apps, but now I'm running the app on the desktop interface. So you kind of see how that makes sense?
Yeah, and so one of the other things that you mentioned earlier that I appreciate you clarifying is that is this all running on a touch screen? So everything you're doing, it's by touch?
I should make sure that when I show you things, that when I'm using a touch screen and when I'm using a keyboard, because it doesn't matter whether you're using a touch screen or a keyboard. Everything that you can do can be done both directions.
Okay, perfect.
Yeah, it's very interface friendly. The first thing that people would say is, oh, you're supposed to have a touch screen for Windows 8, and that might be something somebody might say so that they can buy you a better computer, but it doesn't have to be done with a touch screen. It certainly is a nice interface to use it as a touch screen, but it's okay if you don't. So as we mentioned, we have that suspicious lack of the Start button. There is no Start button. There's just this interface screen here that you see, and then you can flip back and forth between, because there's this tile here that you can flip back and forth between the desktop interface that is more traditional and that new Start Metro interface. So that,
Jeff, I didn't see what you did there to click onto the Metro interface. I saw how you clicked to the desktop interface, but how are you clicking back to the Metro interface?
So there's a couple ways to do it. Thank you. I forget that I'm supposed to want to say that as I'm doing it. If you have a keyboard and mouse and you are in any program, if you hit the start key on the keyboard, the Windows key, it brings you back to that start screen. So
people that are used to using that start button, it functions the same way.
Correct. And if you have a touch screen machine, I'm going to swipe in from the right. And what you'll see is a window that pops up that allows you access to a couple things. One of them being, if I click on Start, it'll bring me back to that Start screen. So, it looks just like the Start button, right? It is. So it goes back to that main screen. So if I come back here into the desktop, I can scroll over and use that. Now, what if you don't have a touchscreen? You can't scroll over. Well, what they do is if you take your mouse and you drag it down to the bottom right-hand corner, you'll see that it pops up for you. So I come over to the side and move my mouse up, and there is that same start screen. So they have given you the ability to use that keyboard and mouse when you don't have that ability to touch your screen and do things.
Perfect.
The big thing is, okay, well, there's the start interface. You know, there's that no start button. Well, how do I start my applications? How do I get to the things that I'm going to use every day? And that's when we talk about the ability to add tiles. Like I've got these tiles right here that if I were to click on any of these, say I want to open up my SharePoint workspace, it's a tile that will bring me to the desktop, and I just use my mouse to click on it, brings me to the desktop and opens up that desktop application. So that's, now I'm going to hit the start key and I'm going to come back to this interface. Okay. Yeah. We're having a little bit of technical difficulty here, and I'm somewhat surprised.
And so, and Windows 8 is not live yet, so we are not ready. This is still a beta version, or I don't know, or the release candidate version. So
I'm just gonna. I believe I might be running several things that I'm just going to close these. While I'm doing that, you can see that if I bring my mouse to the upper left-hand corner and start to drag down, it'll show you everything that's currently open in the Metro interface, the different tiles. I'm just going to right-click and close these just in case we're running a little bit too much, and I can avoid some of that technical difficulty that I was having. And it's still kind of being not happy with me. That's okay. Let's see here. So yeah, a good point that you mentioned is that this is not, it is still a beta. The live doesn't actually, they don't even have a date as of yet. Right now what they're talking about is in the fall is when things are supposed to be coming out.
Gotcha.
There we go.
There you go. It's coming back.
Now I got it. Yep, it's come back. All right. So if I...
So let's hit on these launching applications, and you know, in the traditional, you know, a lot of people are used to putting icons or shortcuts on their desktop, which might be a specific document. How is that playing with this whole interface?
Thank you for bringing that up, because you know that desktop really now is, I compared this start screen to the start menu, but really it could also be considered your desktop. So people put icons on their desktop in order to start applications. Well, this becomes that desktop, and then you're not actually cluttering up your actual traditional desktop. You're using this start screen as what you would pin things to, like I did here. Now there's a couple, going forward with that, there's a couple ways to do that. If I just simply right-click anywhere with my mouse, you'll see this bottom window comes up and it says All Apps. If I click on that, what it brings is it brings a list of every single thing that's installed on this computer, every program, every application. And I can take any one of these. For example, let's look at sticky notes or calculator. I use the calculator every once in a while. If I right-click on the calculator, it brings up another thing down here with some traditional things, like if you right-click on any program right now and you want to run as administrator, that's still there. Open in a new window, that's still there. You can pin it to your taskbar, and what that does is pins it to the desktop interface taskbar, or I can say pin to start menu. Now if I go back to the start screen and I look, you'll see that there's that calculator button that I just pinned. And you can move these around. Hopefully you can see that, how I can move that from one side to the other. And I have all the applications that are my traditional desktop applications sitting here, so I'm going to drop it there. If I click on it, what does it do? It brings me to that traditional desktop, and you'll see, even if I close this, take a look. It's still pinned to the start menu down here in the bottom. And you'll see along the bottom of my window, I've got all these applications pinned there. So I really don't have to, if I am starting from my start screen, I can either click on any of these apps to start them, or I can just go desktop. What I want to do, start my email. So I'm just using the mouse right now. I'll traditionally use the mouse today until I say, this is what it's like if you use touchscreen. So that kind of will help with the guidance around things. So going back to what you said, that idea of that desktop and where applications are started from, you could, in a way, consider this being that desktop, because the best thing that we can do to conquer that change and that fear of change is to make it, to give some similarities between what I used to do and what I am going to be doing now moving forward. So for me, when I picked up this interface, I was like, okay, what's new? How is it similar to what I used to use to make it more comfortable? And it made it very easy for me to switch. And that might be a good point when it comes to having to train and get employees ready for using this new interface when you implement it. So we talked about launching those applications, but what we didn't talk about is actually, we didn't talk about switching between the different applications. You saw a little bit of it, but let's go more into depth. So hopefully we get the idea that we can actually start applications from here, and wherever, I'm going to hit the start menu to come back to that screen. Whether I am starting this calendar app, which is a Metro interface app. Now this is running on the Metro interface. You can see it's a full screen app. I can go back to the start menu, and I might go back to my desktop. And it might be like, oh, it's cumbersome. I don't want to have to always go back to the start screen to switch back and forth between the different applications that I'm running. I want to run the weather app, right? So this is the weather right now. And I don't want to have to click the start screen, go back to my desktop to get at my email. They have come up with an ingenious way of switching back and forth between applications using both the mouse and the touch screen. Let's do the mouse first. If you pull up into the upper left-hand corner, the first thing it'll do is it'll show you the window of the last thing you opened. If I click on that, it goes right to that window. Come back up. The last thing I was at was the desktop. Click on it, it comes back. So it's that quick switch between applications that I had. Now if you do the same thing, upper left-hand corner, and just drag down with your mouse, you'll see all the apps that are currently open. So let's say I want to see the calendar. I go back up in the corner and drag down. Now I've got weather desktop. So you see, Nate, you see kind of how easy it is to switch back and forth even with the mouse when you've got multiple programs open.
Indeed, yeah. So that's good, because that was an actual question that just came in from the audience, is being able to switch back and forth similar to what an iPad can do. And Jeff, you're probably familiar with that, but I believe what you just went through probably answered that question as far as being able to use the upper corner. So if you're not using a mouse, is there a touch screen way to do that, or is it different if you're doing the touch screen in order to do that?
Yes, it is, and I'm glad you brought up the idea of the iPad, because on the iPad with that multi-screen touch, you can, on an iPad when you have applications open, you can swipe to the right or left and go back and forth between applications. Well, you can do the same here. So right now you see my weather desktop. What I'm going to do is I'm going to swipe from the left all the way into the right. What happens is it brings the one of the windows open. If I do it again, it goes back and forth between two apps. And whatever apps that I have open, swiping my finger will basically drag in anything that you have open and switch back and forth. So if I go back to the start menu and I open another one, let's open the people app. And I'm going to go back to the start menu and I'm going to open the photo app. So now we have, if you look in the corner, we have 4 things that are running. Again, I can either come up into the corner with the mouse and down, or similar to iOS, you can slide from the left to the right, and you can filter through those applications. Hopefully that kind of answers that question of switching back and forth between apps.
Yeah, a quick question too also came in was about when you're putting the mouse in the upper left-hand corner there, are you actually clicking, or are you just kind of holding it there, and that's what brings it up?
Yep. So that's a good question. I'm just gonna move the mouse into the corner, not pushing any buttons at all, and it brings up that. Not pushing any buttons, I just pull down, and it does that. So the clicking, you're not clicking a whole lot. It's the location of where the mouse pointer is and where it pulls that information. Same thing with going to the bottom right-hand corner. It pulls up that interface on the right, and as I move my mouse up, that's what you see. So there's actually no clicking involved.
All right, very good.
I want to make sure that you have a chance to pass on those good questions from people, and I don't want to just kind of rush over that stuff. So that easy application switching between the two is nice, whether it's touchscreen interface or with the keyboard mouse interface.
Mm-hmm.
So since we're talking about applications and switching back and forth, I've used the words Metro and traditional desktop applications kind of as we go through, and some people may not know what those differences are and what we're looking for. So, and I've mentioned them a little bit when I said that Metro interface, it's basically a new kind of code base on how applications are created and programmed, and it's using the entire screen real estate. So they have what's called Metro applications, which all these fancy icons, anything that's got a fancy icon, to call them fancy icons, are Metro apps that will use the full screen. Well, when you install something that's a part of Windows 8 or even Windows 7, those applications, they just are tiles that show up that you can select. So the big difference between the two is where that program is running. If you're running a Metro interface app, it's actually running in a part of the operating system that is pulling different resources and making things look a little bit different, as opposed to going to the desktop. It's running, kind of traditionally the way some of those applications run.
Sure.
What's nice is we want to kind of give an idea of where Microsoft is going, right? It's not just a full screen app, but they're trying to enrich your experience. Some of this stuff in a business environment you may not see, right? Like photos. You may not want people to have a running stream of photos that are coming through, but from a consumer standpoint, it's kind of nice to see what some of those things are. For example, the photo app that they have that's a Metro app, you can actually sync pictures that come from Flickr, from Facebook, from your SkyDrive. I can open those up and basically make libraries and folders and actually have those pictures right there at your fingertips. If I go back to Photos and back to SkyDrive, if I go to Facebook, it's going to bring up all of the albums that I've got created. So, and it's not just the photo app. There's a people app that does the same thing. I'm connected to my Exchange account. I'm connected to my Twitter account, my Facebook account, and basically it brings up everybody that's in your account, and you can click on a person. So if I click on me, it's going to bring up kind of a conglomeration of information about me. View my Facebook profile. I'll give you my last updates from different places, different photos that I've posted. If I go to people and I pick, let's see here, Austin. Let's pick on Nathan. Everybody likes to pick on Nathan in our office, so we're going to pick on him now. So I'm going to go to the end, even though it's doing alphabetical by first name, which, if I was a librarian, I probably wouldn't be very happy. So where are you? Here you are. So boom, click on you, and basically from here, I can send you a message on Facebook because you're on Facebook and you're linked in through my Facebook. I can map the address, which is the map here. I can view your LinkedIn profile because you have one and I'm connected to you. Send you an email. Look at your last updates. So
I went to the Aerosmith concert last Saturday, so
there you go. Yeah.
Yeah.
So what's really nice is that they are creating an interface that That is very easy to use. Now, you might say, well, I'm not going to use this in business, and you might not. But what's going to happen is that people are going to be not just using their computer for business, but also at home. I mean, their whole idea is that it's a seamless interface between all computers. So, you know, they're going to have a Windows 8 machine at home. They're going to some eventually may have a Windows Phone that it's going to be using similar interfaces and tiles, and they want to, just like Apple has done with this ecosystem, they want to kind of pull everything together. It even is smart enough to know, if I click on email, do I want to use Outlook, which is open on my desktop, or if I'm going to slide back to that with my finger left to right, or do I want to use, whoops, oh, it just set a standard. So now whenever I click on that, it's going to open up that desktop. But I could have chosen to use the Metro interface mail app, which they also have. That's this app right here, Mail. Just like the other apps, it can take multiple accounts and put them all into one place. I've got an Exchange, a Hotmail, and Google account. So yes, that you can do that in Outlook too, but again, they're trying to bring in this idea of full screen apps where you're not worried about everything else that's around you. If I right-click, yeah, if I right-click on the bottom, right, here's a click. So, you know, somebody had asked, you have to click on anything. If I go to the left and use the windows or to the right to get the start menu, I don't have to click. But if I scroll to the bottom of the screen and I hit left click or right click, it gives me a bunch of options, right? But those options aren't cluttering the screen like it does on a normal desktop app. You know, I don't have to get all this stuff. I'm at the top and the bottom. I'm actually looking at just what I want to look at, not a ribbon that, even though you can minimize it, it's still bringing that whole feature interface.
Yeah, so it's not taking up real estate on your screen. So,
correct.
So Jeff, one of the other questions I had is, as you've gone back and forth between the Metro and the desktop, is this just because we, you know, myself and everyone else on listening in and watching in the future, they're just seeing a single screen here. Is this set up on a dual screen machine or one machine? So like the Metro interface, you're scrolling. Is that similar to what people might be used to on either a smartphone or an iPad as far as scrolling over on screens, or is that actually scrolling across multiple monitors that you have set up?
Right now, I'm doing this on a single, I'm doing this on a Samsung Slate Touch tablet with only one monitor running. But you can run multiple monitors in Windows 8, and it handles it rather well.
Okay. So the scrolling then is not you switching from one monitor over to the next monitor. It's actually it's on the Slate tablet. Okay. So
on a single screen. You know, we could have done a multiple screen one, and that might be something that we can add notes later in the future about how that really handles it. But like on this screen, I can, on the main start interface, the Metro interface, I can use my finger and I can scroll across, right, and move. But if I just have a mouse, the roller on a mouse, if you have a roller mouse, that is what is moving that around.
Gotcha.
But because I have a roller mouse, I mean, I can, if I just take and I wham my mouse to the left or right, you know, like boom, 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 it's actually moving the screen as well. You don't have to have a roller mouse. You can actually still use your mouse without touching a button and move the screen inch by inch.
Gotcha. So let's talk about, you know, one of the things you talked. So we talked about the different interfaces, the switching applications, desktop versus Metro applications. Now, one of the next things you said you wanted to touch on is settings, and since you particularly brought up the ability to link social media, LinkedIn, Facebook, Twitter, Flickr, et cetera, I can imagine a lot of businesses having, you know, taking issue with allowing this kind of thing on people's desktops or laptops. Now, I'm sure that with current firewalling technology, you could block the communication that these applications are using at the firewall level. But can you talk about what are some of the restrictions or policies you can apply for your network so that if you don't want certain of these applications for people to use, Metro interface or otherwise, what can we do? What's the best way to handle that?
So the best way, and there's been kind of debate over this very thing since the consumer preview came out, several months ago, because at first it was rumored that they weren't going to allow group policy actions on a domain controller in a business environment to basically lock some of that stuff down. But as things have gone along and following a couple sites and watching some blogs, it looks like, yes, you will be able to, at the top administrative level, create group policy objects to say, disallow either installations of programs or, for example, some of these programs that you can get come from, when you install it, the People app is there. But there are some things that you can add, and they have this app store. And you can actually disallow access to the app store on your Windows 8 machine through group policy. And that's where some of those social media apps are going to come from. Now, it's always, as we always know, and I've learned in being at Mytech, it's always a multi-tiered approach, right? You don't want to just stick with one perimeter security device. It's like having a firewall and saying, oh, I've got a firewall. I don't need virus on my antivirus software on my machines because I've got a firewall, which, as we know, is not the case. You want multiple levels of security. So still blocking it at the perimeter, but using group policy to disallow certain things on machines for not allowing them to install apps or bring in different programs that you shouldn't be running in your business environment. Since we're talking about settings, it's not just the settings from a global perspective, but on the device itself, they've changed the interface for some of these items. So it's like sync your settings. I'm trying to think of search, users, personalize. I'm trying to remember where it is. Forgive me, because I'm privacy. So most of it is, it's going to be all on not on the local computer side. However, you can dig into the local security policy settings like any computer and control things. But anything that can be controlled on a PC, this single PC basis through local security policy is also controlled by a group policy from the top level.
Gotcha. So when you're dealing with, so like this screen right here, going back to the Metro interface, that screen you just had.
Okay.
Yeah, looking at that. So like for instance, these applications that are here, are these? I remember going back several years when you buy a laptop or a desktop, there was always a bunch of applications that were just installed on there when you got them from distribution or from the manufacturer or whatever. Are these applications here by default, and would an administrator or an organization have to choose to remove them if they didn't want them, or are these things set? You have to go out and actually set and install. And I'm primarily referring to the Metro interface applications that we're seeing right now.
That's something that is probably yet to be known. I've heard that when I installed this, I reinstalled some of these things, like the apps that you see right here, this under the Dow and the travel app and USA Today. None of that stuff was installed. The messaging app was. Some of these were the video app, the store, the music. Sketch wasn't. These weren't.
So you went to the app. You went to the app store that they're talking about. You mentioned to find those that are specifically for the Metro interface. Okay.
However, the Mail app, the Maps app, Internet Explorer. I'm trying to think of what else. The People and the Photos. They were all there. And the question is right now, especially from a business perspective, is, like you said, when you get machines from specific vendors, they will have a lot of stuff in there. It'll be pre-populated with things. really know that yet. It's not really set in stone as to what's going to happen.
Sure.
Some things will be there, some things won't. We're going to have to wait and see what individual vendors are going to do.
But the big picture takeaway, though, relative to the applications is that, and just I'm saying this, and I want you to kind of reinforce it if I'm saying anything incorrectly, or is that we'll be able to, as an organization, you'll be able to, by policy, whether globally at the domain level or at the endpoint, the PC or the laptop or the slate, if it's associated with the domain, be able to restrict the applications that run and that they can install, so that we're not creating a poor productivity environment with all these other distractions for people.
That is correct.
Okay.
Yep.
So
and we'll know
great.
when the initial release, the final release comes out, we'll know exactly what applications are going to be stuck right there on the interface right away, before, and be able to kind of go into the group policy and make sure those get blocked out and not.
Okay, so there's only we've got about 7 or 8 minutes left, and I do want to. There's another thing that's significant about Windows 8 that's different from pretty much any of the past with Microsoft, and it's that there's some hardware stuff. Like they're getting into the tablet market where they're going to actually be, there's going to be a closer tie to hardware where Microsoft's actually going to be dictating that, similar to what Apple does with the iPad. So. Can you talk about a little bit about the hardware? Like, is it 64-bit? Is the OS 64-bit? I mean, how is that evolving right now? And how are some of the memory requirements? For instance, Vista was a hog, and which mainly people didn't like to use it. Windows 7 actually was more efficient. Is Windows 8 building on what Windows 7 did? Kind of talk about that a little bit for a few minutes.
Yeah, from what we've seen and what myself and some of the others that have used it is that it's an efficient operating system. Everything was always based on what kind of hardware you have. What I have read in several different sites and seen is that basically any PC that's purchased in the last 2 years will run Windows 8 just fine, right? When we're talking, I have to open Excel and Word and Outlook and do kind of normal day-to-day things. The times where you have to really worry about hardware is when you are getting to higher level stuff, as we all know. But from the aspect of minimal kind of system requirements, there is both a 32-bit and a 64-bit install. The 32-bit, they kind of say you have to have at least 1 GB of RAM, which, by the way, is Windows XP Service Pack 2's minimum requirement. Like you should have at least 1 GB of RAM. 64-bit, they say a minimum of 2. But people are buying PCs now that have a base of 4.
Right,
so,
4 or 8 or more, yeah.
And within the last year or two, the base has been probably 2, if I'm right. So processor-wise, 1 gigahertz or faster, and that's not something that we can't meet. I mean, we've had 1 gigahertz machines for a long time, but for the last 2 years, for sure, any machine that's running Windows 7 will be able to run Windows 8. Hard drive space, it's not that much of a hog. It uses about 16 gigabytes for a 32-bit and 20 gigabytes for a 64-bit. And the only time that you really want to be concerned is if, as you said, we're doing tablets. Tablets come with solid-state drives, and if you're hurting on space, you have to make sure that you're not going too much, but it's not a big hog. Graphics-wise, the graphics cards that are out there are fine. It was Paul Thurrott with WinSupersite.com who said that basically any PC purchased in the last 2 years will run Windows 8 just fine. That's a quote from him. So when we're talking hardware, we're not talking, IBM supercomputers that need to run it. This little slate tablet is a great machine, and it runs, and it doesn't have a ton of RAM, but it has a fast enough processor, and it runs great.
So I'm seeing that this could be, one of the things that people have been frustrated about, the iPad. It's a great tool. People love using it, but to get business applications to run on it is you're having to use tools like Citrix or terminal services, or if the application you're using happens to have written a custom app that does work on an iPad or an iPhone, then that's great. But most applications don't have that yet. So it sounds like if this is going towards, and I'm kind of leading towards the question of, all right, so great, we talked about Microsoft applications, but what about other third-party applications? If our applications, like I see that you have some of our third-party proprietary applications on this slate on the Metro interface, like ConnectWise is our ticketing system and our contact management solution, CRM. LabTech is some of our monitoring and management agents that helps us serve our customers. These are third-party proprietary applications. How are they running in Windows 8? Or did you have to duct tape some things to get it to work, or did they just work right away?
The most recent version of Windows 8 that was just released, it actually allowed us to run these apps. The preview we had before, in fact, one of the other Slate machines that we have that my colleague James has, he can't run those third-party apps. But as we always get closer to the release, they enhance what's going on. So when I upgraded this to the most recent release, we were able to install all of our third-party apps and get them to work. If we're talking an application that was written in 1992, that's running on software that was obsolete in 1996, it probably is not going to run that great. It depends on whether you're, if it can run on a 32-bit machine, it can run. But if we're talking those older applications, I don't have anything to test to tell you whether they will work or not. But in most cases, I've seen so far of what we've had with this new release, which isn't the final, third-party apps haven't had an issue. Not just Microsoft apps, but regular third-party apps have worked fine.
And that's a typical evolution as you go from, alpha to beta to release candidate, et cetera. So that's to be expected. So basically, the message is that there's going to be the hardware requirements are nominal. If you can run Windows 7 or XP Service Pack 2, you're most likely going to be able to run Windows 8 on the machine. So then I would also imagine that the ability to multitask and have multiple applications running at the same time is going to be based on the RAM that you have in the machine, right? So it's going to have similar kind of hardware restrictions and requirements and overhead.
Just like the Windows 7 machine now. Yep.
Yep, just like Windows 7. Perfect. Okay, that's what I figured. But because Windows 8 is designed to be able to run on a tablet that's also a touchscreen, and Microsoft, you can either get the Samsung Slate like we have as an example, and that can run as a tablet, or they're coming out with their new Surface tablet, which is running a version of Windows 8. You're going to actually be able to run business applications natively on these machines and be able to connect to networks and function and run with them, as opposed to having to run Citrix or terminal services or something like that, like you're having to do on some of the other Android or iPad tablets. Is that correct? Okay.
Yep.
All right.
I concur. That's basically it. I brought up these specs for you to see here, and there's two different types that I still don't know exactly what it is going to happen with how that. There's ARM tablets, and then there's Intel-based tablets. The ARM tablets are basically kind of not dumbed down, but it's just a different processor, and it runs things differently. And those, if you're running Windows 8 on an ARM tablet, it's going to act completely different than Windows 8 on a tablet that we see here. And that kind of remains to be seen as what Microsoft is going to come out with and how they're going to market what they're going to market. What I would say is that when things start to come out, if you want to be able to, in a business environment, be able to manage all the devices that are on your network, you're going to be wanting to get tablets, laptops that are tablets for sure that are Intel-based, not the ARM chip-based. And that's a whole other discussion, really. But to know that in future planning, once the SKUs come out and we see it, it's Windows 8 running on the Intel-based tablets are the ones that we as administrators will be able to have more control over.
Right, and that's also going to be one of the key components to compatibility to other third-party applications. A lot of times those are written from an Intel hardware-based platform, so that will help set yourself up for success with regard to third-party applications that you may choose to run in a Windows 8 environment.
Exactly.
So, okay, great. Well, we're 1 minute over right now, so we are going to end the session. I do want to thank everyone who sent in emails and comments via email as well as via the questions in the chat window. I want to thank Jeff for presenting. Stay tuned. There's a lot of, almost daily, there's some updates or some new piece of information about Windows 8. As a summary, I think it's going to enable a bunch of other options for connectivity with the Surface tablets, the slates, the touch screens, and you can use the Metro interface if that works for you, and some of the more technically savvy people might adopt that sooner. Or if you have people that change in a learning curve is a challenge, we can still do the more of the classic traditional mode in Windows 8, and it doesn't look like it's going to require whole complete hardware refreshes, because we're going to be able to run it on the hardware that you're using today. So you'll be able to make business decisions about this that really isn't going to be that much different than what you're doing today, other than it's going to enable some different connectivity and functions. So thank you, everyone. This will be this has been recorded. It'll be posted to our website if you'd like to refer other people to it at a later date, and you'll be able to see that. It's on our YouTube channel, and it's linked through our website. So thanks a lot, everyone. We're signing off. Have a great day.